My name is Gordon Newton Johnson, the youngest of the family and also one of the winemakers in the family with my wife Nadia. We started off in 1997 with Newton Johnson as a family. Both my brother and I joined my parents to start our very first winery and built it in 1995. Where the name Newton Johnson comes from, Newton is originally my brother and I's second name, which was then taken on as because of our brand, just to honor both the efforts of my mother and my father, with Newton being my mom's maiden name. Well, I'm kind of fortunate to have grown. My father's always been in the wine industry, so I've grown up in Somerset West, Stellenbosch area, underneath the auspices of a lot of great winemakers from the 70s and the 80s, the young Bevan and Gordon and the Giles Webbs. They've kind of always been around the dinner table when I was young. So, I've always had this familiarity with the wine industry, but never thought I would go into it. I have a bit more artistic inclination, and originally it's what I wanted to study at university. But at the end of university, I went to go do a harvest in Stellenbosch, and like surfing, so to say, the bug bit me, and I really started to make, it started to become more apparent to me that it was a medium that I could really express myself in. So, for my love of art, I think that it really slotted in at the right time in my life and really gave me some direction. And at that time, we were just about starting with our winery, or my father was doing some trade wines, and we started on a very small property, almost no vineyard, buying in all our fruit. Yeah, that's where my winemaking career kind of started and really started to grow. And I was just a sponge wanting to take everything in. I seriously considered going back to go study, but after speaking to some winemakers, older winemakers, they said, you must just get out there, go start traveling, which is what I did. Went off to California first, and then to New Zealand, and then to France afterwards. I think that really kind of grounded me in the type of wine that I liked, the type of wine that I could see myself making. We've come from these conventional winemakers making Cabernet Merlots and all kind of different wines that people don't know us for today, to finding something really to focus on. And I would say it's individuality is certain. If people can see that or find appreciation for that in our wines, and really find purity in our wines that gives them a good positive experience, I think that's our main goal with the wines. And at times I think we've really spent on our vineyards and probably invested not that wisely, but all for the betterment of the wine. The wine has always been the very first concern before we look at everything else. You can talk about yourself owning a vineyard, but really in the way the vineyard owns you, it'll grab you in. I've had an amazing journey with these two vineyards, and just seeing them evolve, seeing the differences between them, and really, that becomes part of your philosophy as well, and the way you think about them. We've got Sea Dragon, which I've just opened here, and Wind and Sea. And Sea Dragon is 20 years old this year. And Wind and Sea is 17 years old now. They were both different wines when they were young. I suppose the light bulb moment for what Pinot Noir could do on this property came with this vineyard, Sea Dragon. I took a very good French friend of mine to taste the first vintage. It was actually just after the harvest, and we'd made other Pinot Noirs before, but he kind of tasted it and he said, "Whoa, this is something different. I've never liked your Pinots before, but this is something different." It was a bit of a harsh criticism, but it was a light bulb moment that, wow, we have something different. And Sea Dragon, you can talk about the components of the soil and what effect they do have, or what kind of correlation they do have to the identity of the wine. But it's just always been this very ethereal wine, very complex, but it has that gravitas, that depth to it as well. It's a very, very fine wine. And then with Windansea, which is just up the slope from it, also has clay like Sea Dragon, but it's a lot shallower and it's a lot denser. And this was almost a bit of a brute wine when it was young. It was quite chunky and a little bit wild. And Nadia and I almost didn't take it too seriously in the beginning. But as it started to get older and started to refine itself, and also the different ways that we treated the wine, it's just come into its own. From the light bulb moment to what we thought was maybe not that serious has really grown in us, and it just shows you the value of older vineyards as well. And that is another one of our major focuses or goals, is to make old vine Pinot Noir. We're a family that has a great culture with the sea. We've never lived far from the sea. My father surfed in the 60s. My brother and I, we surf. My father was actually a little bit younger than some of the first guys, but you had the whole coast open to you. The stories of him driving down the garden route where there were no surfers and surfing certain places for the first time. It was an amazing time for adventure, I think, for surfing. But we've also grown up. Both my parents cook extremely well. We've always been a family that is centered around the dinner table, around the kitchen, drinking wine, cooking seafood, and just enjoying that kind of culture. My grandfather worked at the Cape Town docks as a fitter and turner. So he very much had that growing up experience of surfing in Seapoint, catching crayfish right there, just being a youngster and spending his time in the sea there. And then eventually found my mom in Natal and made the journey over there. But it's always been such great input from both my mom and my father that a full family effort. It wasn't really my father that started off at the beginning. We all kind of got together, and then we started to make these wines. We always get asked the question, does Nadia handle some wines and I handle other wines? We're totally intermingled in both of them, and I think the biggest thing that works with us is that we both click with the same palate. Each of us just brings something different to the table. We both have that vision to the same goal. Our most valuable sessions, I think, are when we're tasting together and we're tasting barrels together and we go through everything. And you firstly just get kind of psyched up by the vintage, but you just get a better feel of where our wines are, where they're going, and where they need to go. South Africa has such a jewel in the wine industry here, and looking at all the resources that have been available to us, I always think of South African winemakers. They know how to fight in the trenches. They know how to do hard work. They know what it means to be a small fish in a big pond and go out there and impress and work harder and better themselves. And just also a sign of our, I wouldn't say popularity, probably not a bad word, but the people out there going, gee, look what's happening with South African wines. You can see the love for South African wine. The industry here really is a jewel and it needs to be taken care of. We live in a beautiful place. We're lucky to be doing what we're doing, and we're going to do everything that we can still to make sure that it works.